Hello, Internet. It is I, the Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Predictions. Today we're going to be talking about Fast X, or Fast 10, whatever you want to call it. So, as usual, we're going to be going over the pros and cons, so let's get to it. Pros Fast and the Furious. Hmm. Where do I begin with this series? Oh, there's so much to talk about, but I'm gonna have to condense it all because if I went into detail about all these movies, we'd be here all night. So let's I'll give you the cliff notes. So Fast and the Furious started in 2001. This thing is over 20 years old. It's literally 1 year younger than I am. Like it's been around for that long. We started in 2001 with the Fast and the Furious. Did very well financially, was audience favorite, so naturally you make another one. Too Fast, Too Furious. The best name in movie history, in my opinion. Or at least one of the best names, because like that name is just perfect. Is You can't get more perfect than that. So Too Fast, Too Furious comes out. It does fine. It does alright for itself, especially considering it didn't have Vin Diesel. He was busy doing XXX, so he couldn't. He was doing that, so he couldn't do Too Fast, Too Furious. But it didn't stop Universal. Like, no, we're gonna make more of these, and they made a third one, The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, and this one didn't do all that well, like at all. It only made like 62 million domestic, 157 million worldwide. So at this point, you're probably like, oh, all right, Universal, I think you should stop. This isn't going anywhere. But no, they persisted. They moved forward with Fast and Furious. Just Fast and Furious. Terrible. Like, I don't get why sequels have to have the exact same name as their press. This is what God of War did. You have God of War 2005, and you got God of War 2, then 3, and then 2018 we had God of War. Just God of War. It annoys me. It's a pet peeve of mine. And but this Fast and the Furious movie brought back the old gang, and it did extremely well for itself. Almost like $70 million. It made more in 3 days than Tokyo Drift made total. It made over 300 million. So naturally, you want to do more. Enter Fast Five. This was the turning point, the big turning point for the whole series, because not only did it add an important new character, The Rock's Luke Hobbs, but it also changed the whole direction of the series. Like it went from just being primarily street racing, it went from that to just complete insanity. Like that's what happened, and audiences were like, "Yeah, let's go." Audiences were clearly on board because it made way more money than Fast Four here. Made over 600 million. So you keep what you do, you keep going. Fast and Furious 6, thanks to Fast Five's great reputation, it made more money than Fast Five. Who would have thought? So things are going really, really good. So you want to make another one, Furious 7. Although this movie obviously had the tragic death of Paul Walker, so that kind of put a bit of a dark cloud on it. But like what happened with Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, Paul Walker's death and this being like his last movie fueled Furious 7, and it pushed it to even greater heights as it opened with like over 147 million, made 300 plus million, and made 1.5 billion worldwide, almost doubling Fast 6, which is madness. And one would think this would be it. It would have, and honestly, I feel like they should have ended the movies here. I think a lot of people think it should have ended here because it felt like it would have been a really good conclusion. But Universal, they're just like, no, this series is too valuable. There's too much money to be made. We have to keep going. So enter the Fate of the Furious. Get it? Fate. F8. Fate. Terrible. But yeah, so naturally, there would be a bit of a decline, and there was a noticeable decline, made like 200 million domestic, but 1.2 billion worldwide, so can't call that a flop. So what do? You keep going. Enter Hobbs and Shaw, which is a spin-off. It's not a part of the main, it's not a mainline movie. So it doesn't quite, it's kind of weird, but the movie did okay for a spin-off, even though its numbers are clearly like way lower than most of these movies. But it still did fine for itself. Then we got F9, The Fast Saga. I love how it's called The Fast Saga, which is great. So F9 obviously had to deal with COVID. It got pushed back by like a whole year because of it. Not to mention the whole John Cena Taiwan thing. Ugh, I don't want to relive that. But and not to mention like movie theaters were like the business was trying to come back. Like summer 2021 was like the first real chance of like, all right, after 2020 being a shit year, we can bring the people back. We can make movie going a thing again. And F9 was one of the first big tests in order to achieve the dream of bringing movie going back. And it mostly succeeded off of like 70 million, 173 million domestic, 700 million worldwide. So, yeah, sure, it's less than Hobbs and Shaw, but still, I don't think Universal was going to complain about those numbers. And now here we are with Fast X. So, lots of history here and a lot of success, particularly in the 2010s. Like, that was the peak of the Fast and the Furious. Sure, it may be off its peak now, but there's still, a big audience for Fast and the Furious, clearly. And yeah, I mean, like, just the brand recognition, like, easy brand name recognition. So I'm going to say, like, you know, just the brand itself is a pro, big pro, because of all the money it's made, Universal. So obviously, Fast and Furious is a big, probably is Universal's biggest franchise besides Jurassic Park, and I guess Min and Despicable Me. So yeah, this is their bread and butter, pretty much. So yeah, Fast and Furious as a brand, pro, big pro. Another pro is that competition wise, there's not a lot. I mean, there's Guardians 3, but gonna be in its third week, and there's Mario, which is well over a month old, and that's it. Everything else is just old or small or just dead. So Fast X doesn't have to really deal with anything significant besides, I guess, Guardians 3. That's like the its biggest threat right now. The next weekend, it's not too bad. I mean, sure, you have Little Mermaid, but I don't think the audience for Fast X and Little Mermaid, I don't think there's much crossover there. So it might do fine against that. But then once June hits, that's going to be a totally different story. But we're still in May, so it's fine. But yeah, competition this weekend is more or less minimal. So that's definitely a pro. So that's pro number two. Uh, Trying to think of another pro. I guess I can label like the cast because this movie has a stacked ensemble. Let me show you the poster. Here's the main poster. Look at this. Look at all these people. I mean, there's so many recognizable faces. You got Vin Diesel's bald head. That's the centerpiece. You got him, Charlize Theron, Michelle Rodriguez, Jason Statham, John Cena, Brie Larson, Jason Momoa. You got Tyrese Gibson, Ludacris. It's a lot of people. And yeah, I mean, not to mention all the people who aren't even here, like Helen Mirren. She's in this movie. Oh no, that's a spoiled shit. I just spoiled what happened. My bad. Didn't mean to do that. You probably heard about it online anyway before release. So it's out and about. But you just ignore ignore what you just saw if you haven't seen the movie. Just pretend that didn't exist. But yeah, lots of people here. And yeah, obviously with all these names, it's going to be a big draw. I think sure, their track records may not be the greatest by themselves, but if you put them all together, it makes for a very appealing package. I've said this many times, and I will continue to say it. If you have it's better to have an ensemble cast of recognizable faces than just one person. So, yeah, I'd say all this pro. Just the cast in general is just a big old pro. Um, Trying to think of what else could I say. What other pros are there? I already mentioned competition. I already mentioned brand name. I mentioned uh cast. Oh, Thursday previews. So it made 7.5 million Thursday previews, which isn't bad, especially in comparison to the last Fast movie, F9. If I can bring it up here. Yeah. Uh yes. So F9 opened with 7.1 million. So obviously it's better to have a higher number, obviously. And now opened with 70 million. So I mean that's a positive when you think about it. I mean it's a good omen. I don't know if it's gonna come to fruition, but it's still a good omen. It's still like a good thing to open higher than the last movie. And his Thursday previews, I mean, I think the only movies that have really done better than this are Ant-Man 3, um, Guardians 3, and John Wick 4. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So, yeah, I mean, these Thursday previews are fine. They're not amazing or anything. I mean, for comparison, say Furious 7, I think. Yeah, Furious 7. Look at that movie's Thursday previews. 15.8 million. So obviously you're well off the peak, but 7.5 million previews is not a bad number. So I label the previews as a pro, albeit a bit of a minor pro. I'd say that. I guess another pro is that this movie isn't dealing with the same problems that F9 had to deal with. As I already mentioned, F9 came out when the industry was trying to make movie going a thing again after what happened in 2020. So it was a struggle, a real struggle. I covered it all. I covered the whole process, and it was rough. It was very rough. So now blockbuster movies are back. $1 billion movies are back. We already had one this year with Mario. So the business is in a much healthier state now than it was 2 years ago. So obviously that's a pro for Fast X. It doesn't have to deal with any of F9's problems that were out of its control. So yeah, that's obviously a pro. Okay, I think that's it with pros. Cons. I've already mentioned, Fast and Furious has clearly hit a peak with Furious 7. That was it. It was as high as you're willing to go. It was willing to go. And it's just been a bit of a downhill slide ever since. Which is kind of natural for a series that's been going on for as long as this. No series that goes on for this long is gonna, keep rising. Things are eventually gonna fall. We're seeing that right now with the MCU. The same thing was happening to Fast and Furious. It's inevitable. It's only a matter of time. So while these movies are still have an audience, they're still making money. That downhill slide is very concerning, though. So Yeah, and it's obvious these movies are very much like they feel more like fan only movies instead of like bringing in everybody, like say what Furious 7 did, or I guess what Fast 5 through 7 did. And after that, it's been more and more fan driven and more just like fan centric, and like all the outsiders are just they just don't care anymore. It's like Call of Duty pretty much, like the same vibe as that. So yeah, so Fast and the Furious, despite still being a powerhouse, the declining grosses with the movies, I would definitely label that as a con, and that might affect this movie. So that's con number one. Con number two, the budget. Jesus Christ, the budget. This movie has a budget of $340 million. That's just production budget. That's not even including advertising, which is like another 100 million on top of that. So this movie needs to make bank in order to survive. Pretty much. Like it needs to at least make 800 million just to break even, which is madness. Like so yeah, that budget is going to really just drag this movie down. So yeah, and it's not even going to be like say Avatar 2, where sure that movie needed a crap ton of money just to break even, but we all knew that that movie would make that money. It would make the right amount of money, and it did. Made over $2 billion because it's Avatar. It has that special sauce that only James Cameron can come up with. Fast and the Furious doesn't have special sauce. Well, it did have special sauce, but that special sauce is just running dry, I guess, or it's not having the same effect as it used to. So yeah, that budget is a huge problem. So that's a con, definitely. Another con is the competition, not next weekend, but starting in June. Because in June, there's going to be a ton of blockbuster esque movies coming out, one after another, and they're all going to eat into Fast X's numbers. Probably pretty severely, I would say. I mean, you got Across the Spider Verse, Rise of the Transformers, Rise of the Beast, The Flash. All three of those movies are going to hurt Fast X significantly. So, yeah, Fast X doesn't have a whole lot of time in the sun. Like it has one weekend to to basically to survive, to basically to have its moment. And that's going to be the case for a lot of these summer movies. They're going to have one weekend max to have their moment before that they get crushed by another movie. So, yeah, so the competition in June is going to be real rough. And that's definitely a con in my book. Another con are the reviews. They're not horrible by any means, but they're not great either. They're pretty meh. Like the definition of meh. It's 54%. Eh. Not exactly something I'd be hooting and hollering about. Um, but I've seen worse scores. I mean, Ant Man 3 had a worse score than that. So it's still not great though. Audience score is a lot better at 87%. And I kind of figured that would be the case. Audiences will like this movie more than critics. That's literally been the case for all these movies. So, yeah, but its cinema score is kind of interesting. It's a B plus, which isn't super ideal, although F9 got the same score. And but the thing is, like a lot of the Fast and Furious movies, all got like A's, except for like the first, which got a B plus. So it's kind of weird. But word of mouth seems to be all right, but its critic score is not great. So say just lackluster critic score, decent audience score. I guess that's more middle ground. Reception is more of a middle ground thing. Uh Trying to think of any more cons, significant cons. Ugh. I think that's it really. Yeah, I think that's it. So, opening weekend. I mean, let's look at the Fast and the Furious movies, see what numbers we're dealing with. The highest of these movies is 147. There's no chance in hell Fast X is reaching that. I don't even think there's no chance no chance it's gonna reach Fate of the Furious or Fast Six. Not even Fast Five. So probably I see it reaching. I think all right, Hobbs and Shaw and F9. I think its numbers will be in the realm of like those two movies. I think that's realistic at this point. And sure, but I don't know how front loaded Fast X will be this weekend because like its previews to like weekend numbers like that multiple isn't as severe as other movies, particularly superhero movies. They have it rough. Like it's literally like it could be like times five, like max, like times five or times six. Like F9's preview numbers compared to its actual opening weekend was about let's see, a little less than 10, ever so slightly less than 10. So I don't expect this to have like a 50 million opening weekend. I don't think that's gonna happen. But yeah, I think it will reach 65 to 75 million. That's what I'm going with. I think that's achievable. It might do a little worse than that, but I'm just gonna go with 65 to 75 million. And it's total. I mean, oof, these Fast and Furious movies, they've becoming super front loaded. Well, really with their opening weekends, but sometimes their whole runs could be very front loaded. So, it could match Fast F9, maybe. I don't know. I mean, sure, Memorial Day weekend next weekend they'll soften the blow of week two, but then it has to do with all that competition in June. So I don't know if its legs are gonna be great. I don't expect them to be that great. I'm gonna, man, this is hard. I'm gonna go with 150 to 180. Let's have a wide range, 150 to 180. That's what I'm going with, and that's what I'm sticking with. Worldwide, I mean, obviously overseas is where these movies make most of their money. I mean, freaking Fate of the Furious made $1 billion overseas alone. I guess same goes for Furious 7. They didn't even need America to make $1 billion. But that was a different time. That was a different era. We're in a whole new age with movies. And so, yeah, but Fast X will definitely make way more money overseas than here. But who knows if it'll be a hit. If it's not the hit Universal expects it to be. I feel like they should just end it with Fast 11 because they already announced its existence. It's supposed to be coming out in 2 years. Just end it there and just be done with it. That's what I say. But yeah. Yeah. So that's it for the weekend. Yes, just one movie this weekend. I know, crazy, right? I haven't had one of these weekends in a long ass time. It's been too long. I haven't had one of these weekends since like what? Like the first week of the new year when I cover like Megan, Mithrigan, and that's it. Like every other weekend, it feels like I'm talking about like two, three, four, five, six movies, and it gets really exhausting after a while. So I'm really glad I'm able to just focus on just one movie. Unfortunately, I won't have that opportunity have this opportunity again for a while because next weekend there are five, count them, five movies opening Memorial Day weekend. Only one of them really mattered. I think you know which one it is. The Little Mermaid. Ooh, there's so much to discuss with that. All the controversy and shit. Oof, that's gonna be fun. So we gotta talk about that. But there's also other movies opening on the same weekend about my father, Candidar. I think that's how you'd say it, Candidar. The Machine, You Hurt My Feelings. Gonna talk about all of those. I'm mainly gonna be talking about Little Mermaid because that's the only movie that really matters here. But Yeah, so that's next week. So stay tuned for those videos. Uh, but yeah, that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn notifications, share the whole drill. Want to check out more videos like this? I got playlists on the homepage, all previous prediction videos I made this year. Want to talk, see my prediction videos for the big movies that have already come out this year. Like I said, Mario, John Wick 4, Ant-Man 3. I don't know if I'd count that. Like Guardians 3, I guess I would count that one. Guardians 3, Creed 3, Scream 6, all of them. You want to watch any of those, go right ahead. There's also, in any of the past prediction videos I made the past several years, as long as I've been doing this. There's also the canceled series where I go over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. I've covered Fast X several times. It wasn't called Fast X at that point, so I just used 10. um, I covered it twice. The first time was episode 74. I talked about it alongside Hotel Transylvania 4. That was when it got its initial release date, which was like April of 2023. Then the next time I talked about it was episode 94, where it got moved to the current May date. Talked about it alongside Bullet Train, where the Crawdads sing Memory and, well, The Invitation, but it was called The Bride at that point. So I talked about it alongside those movies. So those two episodes, that's when I talked about Fast X. So you want to watch those episodes or any other ones I've done recently, there's now 190 of these things. So you want to watch any of them from beginning to now, I highly encourage you to do that, so go do it. Um there's also box office recaps where I go over the box office results for any particular month. May recap will come out the first week of June, so after Across the Spider-Verse comes out. So I'll talk about that movie's performance, all the May movies. I watched Fast X I guess yet last night. I guess it would be last night technically. Friday night. It was a pain to watch it because apparently there was this weird surge of demand that I wasn't aware of. And so like a bunch of screenings were sold out. I was like, shit. So I had to like drive to a whole nother theater. It was a mess. I'll tell you all about it when I do the recap video. And yes, I did watch Fast X. Okay. I'll tell you about how I felt about the movie. You so yeah, stay tuned for that when I make the May recap video. So stay tuned for that video. But if you want to watch any of the past recap videos I made on the channel, you can go right ahead. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.